All right. Franklin Clinton put up a good team as far as who he thinks is the greatest individual team of all time. And that's his opinion. You know what I mean? Don't attack him for his opinion. That's how what he feels. But I like to debate. So and make comparisons. So it really piqued my interest because it matches up two of the most dominant NBA centers of all time, plus one of the great perimeter scorers of all time, Kobe. So it's a very intriguing matchup. He thinks that the 2001 Lakers are the greatest team ever, like individual as far as run is concerned. And I do remember that postseason run they had. They went 15-1 during the postseason. I heard one of the persons erroneously say they went 16-1. They went 15-1 because that was before the first round was expanded to a best of 7. So they gave themselves an extra win, but they only had 3 wins. You know, I think it was sometime like 2002 or 2003 when they expanded the first round to best of 7. But it's still an intriguing matchup that he thinks that the 2001 Lakers are the greatest individual team of all time. They had certainly the best run as far as percentage-wise, win percentage-wise in the postseason. But comparing them to the 67 76ers, of course, during the regular season, the Lakers' record did not really jump out at you. They only went 56-26 during the regular season. A lot of it had to do with injuries, in particular injury to Shaquille O'Neal. I remember him having, if I'm not mistaken, I might be misremembering this, but I remember him having 2 distinct injuries that year. Maybe one, but I thought I remember him having 2 different periods where he missed games. It was the first year that Kobe really stepped up his game offensively. And he was barely behind O'Neal in scoring on a per-game basis, and he led the team with total points. But the Lakers that year were amongst the best teams in the NBA as far as scoring. They averaged 100.6 points per game, which was second in the league. This is before the rule changes, so 100 points now wouldn't even be second in the league. They gave up 97.2 points per game, but this improved during the postseason when they had that tremendous run. Offensive rating, they were second in the NBA. Defensive rating, they were ranked 21st. Now, I think the Lakers played better defensively in the postseason. But what I remember about that team was just offensively, they were just unbelievable. I remember Derek Fisher shooting lights out from downtown during the postseason. Lights out. I remember at one point in time he was shooting like 61% from beyond the arc. I think he cooled down just a tad bit, but I think he made something like 50% of his three-pointers during the postseason or something like that. And during the playoffs, they swept Portland in the first round, the team that they vanquished in the conference finals a year prior, barely. Really, Portland choked, but they never recovered from that, as you could guess. And they swept Portland in the first round. In the second round, they swept the Sacramento Kings. In the third round, they swept the San Antonio Spurs with the conference finals. In the NBA finals, they beat the Philadelphia 76ers 4-1. The only game they lost during the postseason. And it was an overtime victory where Allen Iverson scored 48 points. So what they got going for them? They beat the Portland Trailblazers, the team that almost vanquished them the year before prior. They beat the Sacramento Kings, an up-and-coming young team, a team that many felt should have won the 2002 series between the Lakers, and that referee shenanigans had a lot to do with them losing. And the Spurs, a team that was a NBA champion just 2 years prior, albeit abbreviated season, and a team that would go on to win, I believe, 4 more additional titles: 2003, 2005, 2007, and 2014. And in the NBA Finals, they defeated a Philadelphia 76er team, boasting the league's MVP. So they did have one tremendous run. Notable players from that team, of course, Shaquille O'Neal, coming off his MVP season. Kobe Bryant, coming off his best season by far in the NBA at that particular time. At small forward, you had Rick Fox, who averaged 9.4 points per game, shot 44% from the field and 35% from beyond the arc. At shooting guard, I already said Kobe. At power forward, they had Horace Grant, who contributed 8.5 points and 7.1 rebounds per game for the team, shot 46%, not his prime numbers as he had with the Chicago Bulls and earlier with the Orlando Magic. And at point guard, Derek Fisher, who replaced Ron Harper when Ron Harper went down. And Derek Fisher took that role and went with it. Once he got into a starting rotation, hasta la vista, Ron Harper, you're no longer a starter. And he just roared in the postseason as far as his shooting basketball is concerned. Rounding out the bench for the Lakers, notable players. There was other players, but notable players. Brian Shaw, Robert Horry, Devin George, Tyronn Lue. I cannot remember if Isaiah Ryder was on the playoff roster or not. He was on the seasonal roster, but I can't remember whether he was. I seem to remember him being. I seem to remember him suited up, but not really playing much. You know. But wow. Incredible numbers. Then you look at the 67 76ers. They average 125.2 points per game. Obviously first in the NBA. First in offensive rating. They yielded 115.8 points per game. Third defensive rating. During the playoffs, in the first round, they defeated the Cincinnati Royals, who boasted of course, Oscar Robertson and Jack Twynham. Oscar Robertson, of course, everybody knows about him, one of the greatest players of all time. I think he's a top 10 all-time player. So they beat them in the next round. In the conference finals, they defeated the Boston Celtics, the nemesis, a team that had won 8 consecutive NBA championships. They defeated that team 4-1, despite John Havlicek averaging over 30 points per game in that series. And in the NBA Finals, they defeated Wilt Chamberlain's old club, the Warriors, now located in San Francisco. They beat them 4-2. Now, they did lose 4 games, but you look at the level of competition that they played. You got a team that boasts Oscar. During the playoffs, you defeated Oscar Robertson, Jack Twyman, Bill Russell, John Havlicek, Sam Jones. And then in the finals, you beat a red-hot Rick Barry, who dropped 55 in one game and averaged, during the NBA Finals, an unbelievable 40.8 points per game, 8.8 rebounds, and 3.3 assists per game. So dominant was Barry that the ABA, when they opened shop real soon, actually that postseason, I think, or that year, they had their eye on Barry. And ultimately, he did jump ship from the NBA to the ABA, but he just had a ridiculous series. Okay, that was at the time the highest finals average ever until Michael Jordan in 1993, when he averaged 41 points per game. Now, you look at Chamberlain, you have Lucius Jackson, one of the strongest men in the NBA. He said that he thought that he was, one of my subscribers just put this out there. I didn't know this until he put it out there. Matter of fact, I want to give credit to him. Let's see. Zoso915. He said that Lucius Jackson said, when asked who's the strongest players in the NBA, he said, Wilt, then me. All right, you had Chet Walker, Hal Greer, Wally Jones, Larry Costello, and Billy Cunningham, and other players too, Lucas, Gukas, and Bill. Bill Maloney. I've always had problems with his name. Uh, the same guy, Zoso 915, said I mispronounced it in another video. I always saw his name and pronounced it as Bill Malchione, but it's actually, I think the second syllable is might be silent. I think it's actually Malchione. I'm not familiar with how to pronounce his name too well, but he went on to become a star in the ABA. So this is a team with a lot of talent on it, and this is how I think a series between these two teams will go down. This is just my opinion. Number one, I think that Shaquille O'Neal will be in for a rude awakening in this series. Shaquille O'Neal predicated and prided himself. He played like a traditional big man, and he prided himself on his physicality, using his raw physical strength to his advantage. And this was very successful in his NBA career because nobody could really muscle up with Shaq. There's some players who could bang with him for a while, but ultimately throughout a game, and especially throughout an NBA series, Shaq's physicality wore people down. However, there are two NBA players that come to mind who that strategy would not work on. One of them is Artis Gilmore, who I think is the second strongest player in NBA history. And Gilmore himself said he didn't think that strategy would work. And Wilt Chamberlain, the strongest player in NBA history. That would not work against Wilt. In fact, Wilt's physical strength would ultimately begin to wear down Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq's physical advantage would be neutralized by Chamberlain. And I think Shaq would eventually be kind of forced to shoot a lot of shots a little bit outside of his comfort zone. I see a lot of, jump hooks. I see a lot of pump fakes, and I see a lot of, shots that he's not normally comfortable with. That's what I tend to see in this situation. I think Shaq would, instead of putting up I don't even remember what he averaged at finals, but instead of putting up 28, 12, 13 rebounds and 3 assists, I think Shaq would probably be in the teens as far as scoring. I think he would average something like, honestly, 17, 18 points and maybe 7, 8 rebounds a game. I think Chamberlain would neutralize him scoring-wise and on the boards. I think Shaq would have to be more of a decoy maybe, because I just don't see him dominating Wilt Chamberlain. I just don't see it. Now, on the other hand, I see Wilt Chamberlain, because Wilt Chamberlain had, I think, a better overall offensive game than Shaq. I think that he would probably put something up around I don't know, maybe something like 25 to about 28 maybe per game. I see him getting around 15 to 17 boards a game, and probably he may not have as many assists because I think he'd be a little bit more offensive focused in this series, because he might be trying to prove a point, but I could see him being maybe around 28, 17, and 5 to 6 assists per game. Kobe Bryant would probably be, I think he would be the hardest player for the Sixers to stop. I don't think they really have one guy who could slow him down. And I think he would have to, and I think he probably would relish this role. He would probably have to shoot the ball even more than he was accustomed to at that particular time. I think the offense would have to, I think the team would have to rely on him more. But the problem is, I just don't see the Lakers being able to stop guys like a Chet Walker, who was extremely speedy. I can't see Rick Fox checking him. I can't see them stopping him. I can't see the second unit stopping Billy Cunningham. I can't see guys like Brian Shaw, Robert Ory, Devin George, Tyronn Lue stopping Billy Cunningham. Okay, I can't see them stopping the outside shooting of Hal Greer. I think that the Sixers just have too many weapons, and ultimately, I think they would win in a series something like 4-2 or something like that. I give the Lakers maybe 2 games, but that's at the most. Interestingly, Chamberlain in 1967 NBA Finals averaged 17.7 points, 28.5 rebounds, and 6.8 assists per game. So that's just my take on that. So tell me what you guys think.